Welcome to the Exploring New Jersey podcast, where we discover what it's like to live, work, and play in towns throughout New Jersey. Join us as we visit these communities, meet the people, and of course, try the local pizza and give you a real-time opinion of what it's like here. And now for your hosts, Scott and Pete.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Exploring New Jersey. I am your host, Pete, and with my co-host, Scott. So what's going on, brother? How you doing?
What's going on, guys? Back another week.
Back another week, and we are in Wanaque, New Jersey. And, well, technically we're in Haskell.
Presently Haskell,
Presently
yes.
we're in
But
Haskell.
We'll get into the difference there.
So what's the name of where we are now?
This is Kitchen Beer and Bar. So this is a local spot around here. I've been here a couple times myself. Tons of beers on tap. Local spot. You know?
No, it's pretty cool. So the burgers smell delicious. You said you had a burger here before, and it was good.
Very good.
All right, so we got good burger at least.
Cheese curds are good too.
Cheese curds?
Cheese curds.
Okay, and we're drinking, you picked these up, so what are these?
These are Brick City Blonde Ale. It took me a second. I was like, what did I get? We were looking for some IPAs, but there were none on the menu that were light enough. They were all double-digit ABVs.
We'd end up slurring by the end
words
of this
10 minutes in.
All right, cool. And we still got stuff to do after this.
Yes,
so,
we do.
All right, so we are in Wanaque. Now, we mentioned earlier that Haskell, right? We're currently in Haskell. So let's just kick that off real quick. So Haskell, Wanaque, as you understand it, what's the difference?
Yeah, so I actually made a couple calls to a few people just because I didn't really understand it. They are relatively one and the same. Haskell is a borough of Wanaque. So they do kind of have their own independence as far as a post office and an elementary school, but they do go by the same high school. They have the same police department. Just based on what we were, kind of reading about the town itself, is that Haskell is a section of Wanaque that was formed as a company town for a smokeless powder mill. The Haskell powder mill manufactures some .30 caliber smokeless powder that was used in rifles until like 1908.
Yeah.
So I think that they took a lot of pride in that, so they wanted to kind of differentiate themselves from Wanaque.
All right. So for all intents and purposes, we are in Wanaque right now, and we're probably, I don't know, maybe we'll get to Haskell down the road. Not to put down Haskell, but for all intents and purposes, they're relatively the same. I mean, they're different, but have a lot of the same feels, same advantages, disadvantages, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think that we kind of covered a majority of Haskell through Wanaque as all in one. Kind of like the Caldwells.
All right, so let's switch over to specifically Wanaque. So Wanaque land area is about 8 square miles. It is in Passaic County. The median household income is $96,255. Yep, that's right, dollars. Population is 12,090 people. And the average sale price in 2022, there were 107 homes sold for an average of $440,197, which is a little lower than I think some of the other towns we've done.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to cover this too, is because, actually living in this town, I wasn't necessarily sure of what to expect, but you do get a good bang for your buck up here. And so in comparison to the other areas that we covered, I'd say this is more affordable. Yeah,
so let's talk about that, right? So we always do history and notable people. Well, we've got a notable person from Wanaque right here.
Right here.
I've had the pleasure of helping a couple people actually move here into Wanaque and cue their houses right now. So we'll make sure we give them a shout out. But all joking aside, right? So we already talked about it when we were covering Caldwells. That's kind of, you were open to a lot of different areas. Right. So Wanaque maybe wasn't your first pick, but that's where you are now.
Right.
So tell me about what Wanaque was like from the, your perception or what you thought of Wanaque when you first, started searching, to now having purchased here, lived here for a little while, and your perception of what it's like now.
Yeah, so having grown up in Clifton, being 20 minutes from New York City, I assumed anytime you're going up Route 23 past Wayne, I just assumed you're far, right? You're West Milford, it's another 25 minutes, it's all woods. So I was actually kind of against the idea at first, but we saw this really nice house, so we said, all right, let's check it out. Let's make sure that it kind of piques our interest. And actually having driven up here and, driving around the area, I did realize, okay, it's not that far off the beaten path. And if I'm able to get exactly what I want, that's maybe 20 minutes further from where I thought I would be, I was able to justify that in my mind. So my original perception was that this is just far, it's inconvenient, I'm going to be sitting in an hour and a half of traffic each way. And then I was actually pleasantly surprised. Now going to the office, I mean, I'm 30 minutes from Route 3, so it's really not a bad ride. Not like I thought it was.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because, I think it's so funny. Like, I grew up in Saddlebrook, and, there's still, I've had conversations with other people where it's like people think that even like Wayne, right, where our office is like, oh, I couldn't move to Wayne because it's so far from South. But it's like, if you kind of get out and you really start exploring it, it's not so bad a lot of the time.
I think 30 minutes is not as long as I once thought it was, really, is what I kind of chalked it up to.
Well, I think when you talk about, your home, right? Like, that's where you spend a good amount of your time. That's where your free time is spent. I mean, granted, like, we're not talking about up in Sussex County where, it's an hour from the city or
right.
from some of the areas that we're used to having to commute to. That can be a totally different thing, right? Because now you're talking about your quality of life time versus the home that you own, right? And it's a tricky conversation. It is, and we have it a lot. But yeah, it does kind of feel, right? Like, here is a little bit further than maybe someone living in the Clifton metro area really intends to be. But when you actually get out here, you start to realize that it's not as far as maybe you thought, and you get more bang for your buck.
Right, and I actually kind of like the idea of now being in an area that's a little bit more quiet, and, where I grew up also living practically on the Parkway. Our neighborhood was on the Parkway. I'm hearing motorcycles flying at 1 o'clock in the morning. With
It's
the
so
exception
funny.
of the truck behind us.
So we're talking about how quiet it is in the area, and like in true like on cue,
I'm watching the thing behind
there's
me.
a dumpster. Hold on. I got to turn this camera. Hold on. You can't make this up. There's a dumpster. Dumpster just shows up on cue. All right, so the garbage has been taken out. So we're
anyway,
back.
like I was saying before we were rudely interrupted. Yes, growing up in an area where I lived on the Parkway and hearing cars flying by at 1 o'clock in the morning, you'll never have that around here. And part of that reason, too, is that there aren't any major highways that actually cut through this town. So pro and con there. You definitely have quiet, but it's also a little bit inconvenient in terms of its overall location on a map.
Right. As long as you don't have any dumpsters in your backyard coming in empty at 2 a.m, you should be fine because it's pretty quiet. So,
correct.
All right, cool. So one last little tidbit. Wanaque's name derived from the Lenni Lenape Native American word meaning land of sassafras. So big shout out to Ash. She wanted to make sure we got land of sassafras in this episode.
Sassafras.
And shout out to sassafras. Did we determine what sassafras is?
I don't know.
All right. So
I think it's a plant.
Tell us what sassafras is if you're watching. All right, so we talked. Let's just dive into transportation a little bit here, right? So you touched on that. So convenient, inconvenient. There's not a ton of major highways, so you've got some pretty quiet areas. Mm-hmm. So there's really 2 ways in and 2 ways out here in Wanaque, right? So you've got Ringwood Ave, which is right off of where we are now.
And that's what we're on, right?
And then Skyline Drive.
Correct.
So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so
more
Ringwood
specifically, right? Because now you're driving, just so our listeners know, right? You're going from Lyndhurst right now, is where your office is, and you spend most of your time, to and from Lyndhurst.
Yep.
So first, I mean, that's like you're like right outside New York City, right? You're talking.
We're right by MetLife, basically.
Yeah, right by MetLife, right by like the hub again of that metro area where a lot of people are commuting, at least most of that. So what does that look like for you? Going back and forth on a somewhat regular basis.
So I'm a little bit jaded just because I work kind of off hours. I tend to miss the school traffic because Ringwood Ave does get a little bit busy because they have the high schools right off of it. Both elementary schools are right off it as well. This is kind of like your main road, right? And there's a bunch of neighborhoods that are right off of this road for the most part. So, but for me, if I'm leaving, say, 8:45, 9 o'clock in the morning to head to the office, I'm usually getting there around 9:30, 9:40, depending upon traffic. So it's 22 miles from Lyndhurst, but
Okay.
I mostly miss traffic, so I'm there in 30, 35 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, so, piggybacking off of that, the 2 main roads, Ringwood Ave or Skyline Drive. Skyline Drive will cut through Oakland and then into Ringwood, and then kind of dumps you out at the far end of Wanaque.
Right.
So
okay.
if you're trying to get to the Haskell section of Wanaque, you'll want to take exit 55, which is Ringwood Ave. It'll
Right.
pretty much put you right here, close to Pompton Lakes.
Off of 287.
Exactly.
And then from taking Skyline Drive, right, that usually then takes you out towards 208? Is that your best bet
Skyline
to
Drive
208?
will take you further up closer to 208, but
Right.
still on 287, yeah.
Off on 287, yeah. And then,
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I would say if we're just going through the honest pros and cons of this area, the one thing that me and my fiance do get frustrated with is sometimes if Skyline Drive is closed, there's really only one other way home, right? So ultimately you will see a lot of traffic on Ringwood Ave backing up, especially if there's snow or significant rain, because it's so hilly on Skyline Drive. They're not going to open that up to the public if it's some sort of hazard.
Right. Yeah. No. Skyline Drive gets shut down. It's going to be a tough.
But one thing I did
trip.
learn from my neighbor actually is that there is a Skyline Drive phone number. So if you're ever unsure because of inclement weather, you could just call them and it'll say, "Hey, this is Skyline Road exit." This is Skyline Road. We're either open or we're closed, and until further notice.
Okay, and that phone number is located right here, so you can check that out on the video podcast.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Perfect. All right. So, as far as commuting and stuff like that goes, right? We know there's no train in Wanaque.
Correct.
Right. I mean, I think well, let me just keep going through this. So there's no train in Wanaque. Your closest train station would be Butler or Franklin Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So if train commuting is important to you, Wanaque is probably not the town. Not the town.
There's other towns for it.
There's other towns. Right. Yeah. For the bus, you take looks like the 197 towards Warwick via Willowbrook.
And vice versa if you're going from the city to Wanaque.
Okay. Towards Warwick, though.
Towards Warwick, New York.
Okay.
Right? Or away from Warwick, New York. Right? Towards Secaucus or
Gotcha.
To or from, basically, I would say. Because it's on that line. It is a bit of a commute because of the significant stops. So you might be close to 2 hours on some days of getting home. So, again, I would almost say that you can commute to the city here, but your best bet is driving, right? Which is still probably about an hour.
Right.
And otherwise, if you're a commuter, this probably isn't the best town for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, if that's what's most important to you. All right. So I think we covered pretty much everything there. But yeah, the key takeaway for Wanaque when it comes to New York City commuters is you're going to be in for a pretty long commute if commuting into the city every single day. But there are some other things here in this town that I think would make it worth it if that's something that you wanted, if something that was important to you. Lower price point, some more property maybe.
Yeah.
Definitely a quieter area. So let's talk a little bit about just the town, right? So we gave a little preview of the town while the dump truck was here. So what are some of the things that you take away from just Wanaque when you're driving around that like maybe someone should know who's maybe exploring here?
One of the things that I was joking with you about in the car is I was saying this is a very like blue collar town, right? It's like, and we've had a lot of towns that we've covered that I've used this example, but it's a lot of mom and pop shops, right? I was actually joking saying Ringwood Ave is like the land of broken down cars because you have auto body shops, you have tire replacements. It seems like everybody owns an auto body shop on this road.
There's also like concrete and there's
concrete,
a lot of
asphalt, paving. So it seems like kind of like your gritty, like
worker class town.
Pretty exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's almost got like a Pittsburgh feel to it. Like
I haven't been, but it's kind of what I imagine.
Like Steel City,
like.
right? Isn't that what they are?
Yeah. But yeah, I would say that it's the best touch of like, you know, working class, but also outdoorsy. You know, I mean, there's tons of hiking trails up here. It's like every 6 feet you run into a tree, basically. You know. And we actually explored a couple of them. We ventured about 75 to 100 feet into one.
Yeah, real explorers we were. Scott said something about a bear, and I was like, wait, what? But yeah, that's what you're here, right? You're in Wanaque. You are, you know. So right now where we are in the beginning part of Ringwood Ave, which is in Haskell, it's a little more flat, right? But as you start to head up Ringwood Ave, more towards Wanaque, and then I'm not sure exactly which direction, but start up, you'll see the mountains on your right-hand side as you're coming into Wanaque, right? And you'll start to see that as you go back behind some of those neighborhoods, that's really where the hiking trails are. That's where the mountain, you know, kind of the elevation.
Ramapo Valley, you know, that whole cluster over there.
And you start to get a little bit more of that like wilderness rural feel. And then you can, you know, so we have these homes here that are more on like flat, you know, neighborhoods. Then you start to get up into the hills and you've got, you know, now different elevations, different, you know, you're not talking about necessarily a flat piece of land that you're going to be living on.
I mean, you've seen my driveway.
But you've got some amazing views, right?
You do.
So it's like the trade-off between that and the other. And also what we talked about too was that like these neighborhoods, depending on where you are, they can feel very different from each other.
That's what I was basically explaining to you before too, is that every neighborhood kind of has its own feel, right? So where my brother lives versus where I live, we're only 2 miles apart, but our neighborhoods look entirely different. You know, his homes are a little bit closer together. Ours are all bi-levels, and they're all a little bit more scattered out. So it almost seems like there were different developers coming in different neighborhoods and just building them one at a time. That's kind of how I felt.
Well, and you also, like, even just Ringwood Ave driving down, you can almost feel like you can see where the original homes were.
Right.
Right. There weren't a ton. It wasn't as many people as in many towns here in northern New Jersey. But you can see where, like, the older colonials were with the porches and the nice sized yards. And then what I noticed actually was there seems to be quite a, like, clusters here and there of, like, row houses or, like, almost small little condo, like 3 or 4 condo units. So there's, you know, I feel like we always say there's a little bit of everything in this town. But, you know, as we started going up into
the Rampo Mountain Estates.
Yeah. I mean, you started seeing these really nice, big, you know, more modern colonials, definitely newer, with some great views.
Yeah. So this is one of those towns that whether your budget is $1 million or $300,000, it's a good chance you could find something that'll fit your needs.
And from us just driving around even today, and I'm, you know, pretty familiar with Wanaque. Obviously, you live here. But I was like, oh, wow, look, there's like this little pocket here, and then there's this other little pocket here. So if you're thinking Wanaque or Haskell or this area, even Ringwood for that matter, you know, might be something that you're entertaining, I would say don't just do a drive down Ringwood Ave and decide that's what Wanaque is.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean, right? Would
It's
you
not
agree
at
with
all.
that?
Yeah. And I actually thought the same thing. Like, when I was first coming up here, I was like, oh, again, Skyline Drive was like the road that I was like, oh man, that's like woods. That's the far one. And even Ringwood Ave, I was like, all right, either way is not that bad. But yeah, you got to get into the actual communities that you would actually be buying a home in, rather than just looking at the 2 and only main roads in this town.
Yeah, yeah. Some towns I feel like you get a pretty good feel just drive. Like, you can. Some towns are pretty small, right? And you can kind of just do a loop, and you're like, all right, now it's familiar.
I know everything I need to know.
Yeah, but this is definitely one of those towns where I would say spend the day, spend a couple hours, like really get lost in this area here to really appreciate it.
100%.
All right, parks and recreation. So we mentioned the hiking trails.
Mm-hmm.
So we went down where, you know, you mentioned bear, and I was like, all right, I'm done.
Yep.
Even though I enjoy hiking, big fan, but make sure you have proper precautions before you were getting lost in the woods.
That's right.
Let's see, what else do we got here?
We have the Wanaque Reservoir we could talk about, considering that's what the town is almost built around, right? Which we learned is the second biggest reservoir in New Jersey by volume, and second largest body of water in the whole New Jersey area.
That's crazy.
So it's insane. I still don't know exactly who all receives water from there, but I'm pretty sure it's everything all the way down to like Newark, all the way up in this area, of course. Seems like it services quite a bit of North Jersey.
Yeah, I don't know if it still does, but I remember we were reading that. Yeah, it went as far. I guess it was Newark, or
it was
Newark,
definitely
Clifton.
Or
it was towns that we were like, wow, this really goes
Yeah.
far. All right, cool. So it's a cool little thing to look at, and you know, you just kind of see it as
It's
you're going by.
picturesque, it's
Yeah.
pretty, and especially once you start even working your way into Ringwood, there's certain like lookout points where you get a really nice view of it. Again, not Wanaque, but the Wanaque Reservoir is still worth mentioning.
Yeah, cool. All right. Okay, we mentioned Back Beach Park, which is where you start a lot of the hiking trails, which is where we were before.
Exactly.
And they all kind of spider out from there. The one we were looking at was like 7 miles.
Yeah, it was a large one.
Yeah.
I think that you could have spent your entire day through that trail if you really wanted to.
You and I probably would have taken all day, but the
I
maps.
wasn't properly equipped with my jeans and white shoes,
Yeah.
but I also don't hike, so.
Yeah, the map said like 3 hours and 20 minutes.
For a hiker.
Which seems short, to be honest, but anyways.
Optimistic.
Wanaque Rec Center opened in May of 2023.
Yes, we didn't really get a chance to explore that too much. That, believe it or not, that's a little deceptive. So when we pulled into the parking lot, it's actually behind a church, which, I mean, this is July, but they're also setting up for a carnival, so it was kind of a little bit hidden for us. We didn't really get a chance to explore too much, but it sounds like, you know, based on what we've read online, that it seems like one of the places that a lot of kids are going to, especially over the summer.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you can have a rec center, I think that's a huge plus where the kids can kind of go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they even have adult classes, right? They offer fitness classes, indoor basketball courts, foosball, ping pong table, and they do some other community events, like you mentioned, that they do the carnival over there, and some summer camps and stuff like that. And then Spring Lake Day Camp, which is right by your house.
Nothing better than Spring Lake Day Camp.
You would
Guys,
think you've gone there.
You would think. I've never been. I've only lived next to it for like a year. But when I tell you, if I was a kid growing up here, I think it's expensive. We looked into it. I don't know why, we don't have kids, but we looked into it. I'm pretty sure it's like $4,000 for the summer, but it's like 5 days a week. They have zip lines, swimming, woodworking, fishing, paddle boats. Like, if you name it, I would live there. That place looks so freaking cool. I mean, I'm pushing 30, but I'd be a freaking summer counselor there.
I mean, I like fishing. I like swimming, bumper boats. I mean, kickball, are you kidding me?
Dude. All right, the other con, too. Bunch of small buses that are just loading kids in there at like 8 o'clock in the morning in the summer. So, although you're missing, the school traffic, in my neighborhood specifically, because it's right over there, a lot of people will miss it. But I tend to hit that every morning, too.
Okay. All right, cool. So that's a lot of the parks and recreation that we discovered when we were here. And then schools. So we've got Wanaque Elementary School, a 4 out of 10 on grade schools, 7 out of 10 on a Bing search.
Yeah, so I don't know what that means.
You know what that means?
It means that you need to do your own homework.
Don't trust the school ratings. We say it every episode.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence on that. There's so much more that goes into a good school, in our opinion, than just some ranking online.
Correct.
But Wanaque Elementary does pre-kindergarten all the way through 8th grade.
Correct.
So, that could be middle school too. And then Lakeland Regional High School, which is Ringwood, Haskell, and Wanaque.
Correct. But then remember, Haskell does have its own elementary school as well on Ringwood Ave as well. I think we're a block or two from it.
Yeah, we're not far from it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, now some of the best parts, which is the bar and restaurants.
Of course.
I'm going to kick this one off with Tree Tavern Pizza.
You should.
Okay, so Tree Tavern Pizza is actually known as, they are the first frozen take-home pizzas
it's DiGiorno's before DiGiorno's was DiGiorno's.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. So most of my life, my father was buying Tree Tavern Pizza, and I only knew it as, okay, these are just the frozen pizzas that you get at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere along the lines, I discovered that Tree Tavern Pizza is an actual real restaurant here in Wanaque where you can actually go and get fresh made pizza. So I think you had asked me earlier which one was better. I mean, I'm always going to go with fresh pizza. It's always better. But frozen pizza, I mean, it's about as good as you can get.
Well, and you're not the first person that told me that, too. Actually, shout out to my buddy Kyle, because he said the same thing. He's like, I never even knew that was a thing. He's like, my family told me about it, so I had to go. So I actually didn't know it was a frozen pizza. I only knew about it because you got me a gift card there, a year ago when I bought my house.
Right. So let's see, a little history fact. The Tree Tavern started as a tavern and restaurant on Crosby Place in Patterson. So it actually started in Patterson. It was a landmark location through the 1950s and 60s, right in the heart of the city. The Francia family, I hope I said that right. The Francia family presided over the restaurant from the very beginning. They froze the very first Tree Tavern pizza in 1955. And it was the first frozen pizza ever sold in a supermarket.
Wild. And just food for thought, when you go there, we'll have some footage that we'll post right now. When you think you're not there, you actually are there. The first time I went, I thought I was in somebody's backyard. It's a very deceptive place. It almost looks like someone bought a house there and converted it into a restaurant.
I would be willing to bet that that's exactly what happened.
It probably was. But it is so cool. It's so good. I've only gone in the winter though too, so I actually got to go back in the summer now because they have a whole outdoor patio bar area. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, so that's what I was showing you because I was like, you got to come. It's so nice out there in the summertime or just any nice, spring, fall, whatever. They got the lights set up, they got the bar outside, the service outside. It's just I think it speaks a lot to Wanaque, right? Like Wanaque is almost like an unassuming but has a lot of value, right? Mm-hmm. Like it may not seem like much, but when you're here, you really appreciate it,
yeah,
right?
Totally.
So it's like it doesn't look like this whole big fancy pizzeria restaurant.
It's not at all.
But you know what? It's good food. It's
really
a good place to be, and the atmosphere is great. It's nice and quiet. I mean, I think that speaks a lot to Wanaque in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
All right, so what else do we got?
We also have Bonacera, which I haven't been, so I can't actually comment on it, but the few people that have gone, actually, that told us to check it out. Seems like it's a BYOB. It's in Haskell, right over here, right off 287, Italian spot. Supposedly it's phenomenal.
And you were so close, but it's Bonacera.
Pardon me.
How much did you say? What was the ABV on this again?
Not enough.
Not enough? All right, I'm just feeling good today. Bonacera.
Yeah, whatever it is. Pete, I won't say it. Pete'll give you the pronunciation. Maybe put it here in the video as well.
Yeah, buona sera.
That's right. And then we have Kitchen Beer and Bar, which we're at again right now.
Big shout out to them, by the way. We asked them. It was a little busy in there. We needed a little, recording outside. They made it happen. So big shout out to them.
I mean, we don't need to give them everything, but this is a nice little rock patio setup, especially in the summers. I think they even have like cornhole tournaments in here too.
Yeah,
it seems like the type of place that would.
Absolutely. So definitely check these guys out.
So really good spot. There's another bar called Flips, not too far down the road. Again, I've been here a little less than a year, so I haven't explored everything. From what I gather, with all due respect, Flips is kind of like your local dive bar, right? So it's one of those places you kind of walk in. Reminds me of like Cheers, where everybody seems to know each other.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So sounds like a really good place. And then Nini's Cocina. Do you want to pronounce that one?
No.
Or is that okay?
That's good enough. I'm gonna embarrass myself if I do anymore.
Okay, that's Mexican food. I was actually really surprised with how good that was too. I've gone there a couple times. That's not far from my brother's, so it's walking distance. So we've gone there a couple times.
Awesome.
So,
very cool.
And yeah, I mean, there's a couple other places that we've been trying to check out, but in more the bordering towns, because I don't know if we covered the bordering towns. We have Ringwood, Oakland, Pompton Lakes, Haskell being the subsect of, and is that it? Is there four?
Yeah, Bloomingdale.
Bloomingdale.
So, yeah, Ringwood, Bloomingdale, Pompton Lakes, Oakland, and Haskell were some of the towns that we
so
since
since Wanaque's small and more of like a bunch of neighborhoods, there's not a ton of different restaurants in this area, so sometimes you could kind of, go right outside and find some good stuff.
Yeah. All right, cool. Very, very cool. All right, what else do we got? So public service, volunteer fire department, and they have their own police department. Mm-hmm. And let's talk pizza.
Yes.
All right, so we tried to hit Brooklyn.
Yep, closed on Mondays.
Brooklyn's closed on Mondays, so we're going to have to come back, and we're sending Scott back on a solo.
Strike one.
You said it, not me. We'll make sure that you go back before we air this, because they might, well, whatever. We don't know them, so we don't want to cast anything. But no, they were actually from the One Bite app, which if anybody follows that on Barstool, I think they were the highest rated.
In this area.
Yeah, slightly above Pizza One,
Correct.
Which is where we did end up going.
Yep.
Give me the rundown of Pizza One, bro.
Yeah, I'd say Pizza One is solid. I don't think that it's... I'm still trying to find my pizza place up here, right? Because when you grow up in Clifton, there's enough places, whether it's Clifton or surrounding towns, that you have a choice of 15 different pizza places. Up here, you have Pizza One, Geppetto's, and Brooklyn. I seem to be the three. We actually opt for a pizza place in Franklin Lakes, of all places, and we'll just, go pick it up because it's 10-15 minutes away.
Not a local guy. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah, right. But no, on that note, I think Pizza One is solid. I think that it's something, solid slice. A little too oily for me, maybe a little underdone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the crust was, the undercarriage was awesome. I always like when it's got that little bit of as you're folding it over, like spiders almost, and it starts to get all these different places. The cheese, this sounds so weird to say, but it was almost too much cheese.
I agree.
I thought it was a little heavy on the cheese, and I love
Which
cheese.
no one says ever.
Yeah, so that's weird, I guess. But the sauce, it was more of a sweet sauce. They had a good, I thought there was a good amount of sauce on the pizza. A little oily, but hey, it's pizza. What are you gonna do?
Like I said, I mean, I don't have bad pizza often, and if it's bad pizza, it's bad pizza.
Yeah, we're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
So shout out to Pizza One, definitely one. They had some good specials too. It looked like, so if you're having a party or something like that, definitely a good spot to hit. And again, we get the plain slices. We might have to change that up though, because man, some of those
some funky looking slices that looked really good.
Some of those specialty slices looked really awesome.
I agree.
So, all right, cool. So I think that does it for us here. Anything?
Well, let me ask you this, Pete.
Yeah.
I live here, so I could give you my reasons to live here and reasons to not. Give me one reason that you would live here.
Well, you live here, man.
Right.
So there you go. That'd be a reason for me.
That's
to
a
live
good
here.
enough reason for me.
No, we definitely have. We have some good friends here, including yourselves. Some of our best friends actually live here. We had the honor of helping them find a house. So, I mean, I would say.
That is an okay answer, though, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about the people that you'd be around.
100%. Yeah, I think the Skyline and the Ringwood Ave being the two ins and outs. I mean, you have to remember, I grew up mostly in Saddlebrook, where you've got 6 major highways running through.
So that's your reason not to live here, basically.
Yeah. I don't know. It's on the list. It's on the list of potential places.
And that's fair. I mean, that was one of my reasons not to live here, though, if I'm honest, when we were weighing out some pros and cons. But to us, I did realize, I was like, okay, if we're 2 miles off the 287, how long could it really take you to get there?
Yeah.
Once you're on 287, we know you can get to 208, 23, 80, 46, all within 15 minutes from being on there. So, but I agree. Yeah. I think that it's I really like it. I think that most people that come to my house at first had the same thought as I did. Oh, it's super far and blah, blah, blah. And once they get up here, they're like, this is all right. This is not so bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, I think the hard part for us is like we drive so much.
Right.
And all different times, right? Because we're going to different appointments and showings and things like that. So that has to come into consideration. But I'm one who I love the quiet, rural, like more quiet areas.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a reason to move here. Is definitely something that I would like. You get more bang for your buck. You have a bigger house, more amenities.
I'll also note too, technically speaking, like I know New York City's not close, but on Skyline Drive you could actually see the skyline. So it is something that's still like, if you want something that has, it's still technically a suburb of New York. It's a further suburb. We're not talking your Saddlebrooks or Cliftons of the world, but if you're looking for a good, affordable town, in my opinion, I think that if you want something that's a little bit more quiet, I would say Wanaque could be a great option for you.
One thing we probably didn't mention, and I've heard this, and I haven't fully experienced it, but there's some pride in the community here. Like, it's got that like small town feel.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
I just don't think that you see it as much, just because, again, when you think of the high school is like a regional high school, right? So you don't know if kids are from Wanaque or Ringwood or Haskell, for that matter. So there's definitely a sense of pride, but it feels like the pride of all three towns kind of all commingle with one another.
Right. Very cool. All right. Well, so Wanaque, that's the rundown as we see it. So we appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to this, or watching if you're watching us on YouTube or video podcast. And if you didn't know, Spotify actually has this as a video podcast. So maybe you were just listening, click the little button and you're going to see us. Look at us. Here we are. There we are. But thanks so much for checking us out. Be sure to like this video, subscribe. And if maybe there's somebody who you think would enjoy this video, or maybe just wants to learn a little bit more about some different towns, please be sure to share that with them so we can help get some great information in front of them as well. And I think that pretty much does it for us. Wanaque, great town, solid spot for some beers. Maybe not the perfect commuter town, but you've got a lot of hiking trails and a lot of other great parts about it. So until next time.
Take care, guys.
Peace out. All right. We're getting good at this.
Mm-hmm.